Okay, as they would say to grade school kids, settle down. I want to welcome you to this afternoon's presentation with the panelists that we have up here. It's really, truly a pleasure to be at this point in time in agricultural policy and wildlife policy here in Pennsylvania for us all to be together and be working proactively on all of our issues. I'm Andy Bader. I'm the chairman of Pennsylvania Farm Bureau's Wildlife and Fisheries Committee. I'll be your moderator. Our panelists today will all talk about their perspectives on wildlife policy, and then at the end we'll have an opportunity to ask the group as a whole questions. And if you don't, as an audience, ask some questions, you'll force me to ask a question, which sometimes I ask very challenging questions. Many of them have heard my questions before, so it might be better if you ask the questions. So first up on our docket today would be Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture Secretary Russell Redding. Secretary Redding, would you like to give us some opening comments?
Yeah, Andy, thank you, and good afternoon, everybody. Good to see you. It's a pleasure always to be together here at Ag Progress Days, but I think particularly at this moment, given the last time we convened, it was cold, and we did not have solutions, right? We've come a long way, and I just want to acknowledge the coalition that came together to really focus on the problem. And that coalition, is the Game Commission, it's the hunters, it's the Farm Bureau, it's the farmers, it's the General Assembly, it's a governor, it's a lot of great advocates, who just saw what the title of this is all about. It's that balance between sort of agriculture and our wildlife. And we were here earlier today talking about the balance between agriculture and the environment. This is another dimension to that, right? And probably as complicated of just how do you manage this landscape where you have an economic enterprise of agriculture balanced against a wild herd, right, of a lot of deer. And as I said in January at the farm show, there's this convergence of things. We don't often talk about it, is that you have a number of hunters, right, on a decrease or at least a plateau. You have land that is supporting the wildlife, but increasingly we have folks who post that land, right? And there's a challenge in that because we want it both ways, right? I want to be able to protect it, but also reserve it for my family or friends or whatever. But in all of that, we see the impacts where you have significant crop losses occurring. You have significant sort of economic pressures already existing inside of agriculture, magnified by deer damage. And so what's the solution to that? And part of that solution is increasing the access and opportunity, which we saw in the legislation, increasing the confidence that landowners would have, should have, for those who are accessing, making it as easy as possible to harvest those deer that are done in partnership. And then being really mindful that we have a need for good protein, right? And I always like to put it out there because it motivates me in our family to hunt. We've got plenty, but there are a lot of those folks in my community and around me at home who do not. And one way, simple way for us to sort of satisfy that is through the hunter share in the harvest. So I think it's this perfect convergence of the need for landowners, the need for farms, the increased opportunity for hunters to access and harvest, being mindful that we do this in a symbiotic way between the environment, hunters, and those in our communities who are hungry. But we do that all in the public space. And the amazing thing to me is the folks who've come together to allow that to be possible in a really short span of time. I think that's a credit to many. It's about compromise. It's about good public process that produces a really important result. So thank you all for being here. Thanks for the support in this effort. Thanks to the governor and the legislature and teams that came together to allow this moment to happen. So look forward to the conversation, and thank you.
Well, thank you, Secretary Redding. All right, next up, Pennsylvania Farm Bureau President Chris Hoffman. President Hoffman.
Well, thank you, Andy, and it is an honor to be here representing over 26,000 farmers across Pennsylvania. And, you know, as I was driving in here this morning, I was watching a couple of the farmers out there tedding the hay and looking at the crops that were out there and looking at some of the newest technology that we have. And we come here and we celebrate, you know, ag progressing, you know, going forward. And then I get to travel around the state and I get to see all those great new seeds, those new hybrids, those new bio crops that don't seem to perform like they do around the fence. And, you know, it's been one of those number one issues since I became president 3 years ago, that wildlife damage was one of the biggest concerns, our members had when we would pull them and ask them, right? And so I think about, you know, where we started and where we are today. It's just miraculous to see how we've been able to move forward, how we've been able to come together as a coalition, not only with the Game Commission, with the Secretary and his department, with hunters sharing the harvest, but even the hunting groups as they've come along with us, right? And have shared the same vision, understanding that farmers have needs and that we have the ability to put our heads together and to really work as a team to solve and come up with solutions. And so when I think about this last 6 months, 8 months since the farm show, the amount of movement and the success that we've been able to see has been just miraculous. It's phenomenal to see what we've been able to do as a team. And I just, you know, first want to say thank you to everyone who has worked really, really hard to be a part of the solution, because I think that's what it is. Are we going to be totally there? Probably not. We got to have more tools, right? We got to have more opportunities. But you know, as we look at where we were just 8 months ago to today, you know, we've got new legislation that was passed that farmers, yeah, we were known to be holding up Sunday hunting. It was the Farm Bureau, anyone will tell you that. But we needed a few things too. We needed some trespassing laws that helped with our biosecurity. We needed to make sure we were doing that. We needed to make sure that farmers had different tools, being able to remove the deer from the fields or the bear or whatever, right? And so we worked at trying to make sure that as we move forward, we were able to check the boxes that really needed to be checked. And so for us as a Farm Bureau, we're extremely proud of where we are today with the opportunity. I have been able to spend some time with the Game Commission, and I've really enjoyed together. Collaboration is real, right? It is totally different than it was 3 years ago. I'm sure they'll be glad to tell you that. But in going out, and I know Tyler will talk about the new hunting program, but I was able to go along and to go to some of our Farm Bureau members who are really struggling with deer damage, and with them being able to sign up their farm with part of a solution just makes them excited, right? They're just excited about what the opportunities are and how they can help mitigate, and we can get our hunters, those people who rely on to lower the population, to help be part of the solution to what we're trying to do. And so I'm excited about this program. I'm excited about the things we're doing. I know we have probably a lot more tools we've got to work out and put into place, but it is exciting times to see where we are. And I'm excited about this year's deer season, because I've seen more buck in fields. Maybe it's because I've been out, but there's a lot of buck out there and a lot of doe. And so it's going to be a phenomenal season, and we're gonna end up being able to eliminate some of the issues that our farmers are having when it comes to wildlife damage. So thanks for the opportunity to be a part of this.
Well, thank you, President Hoffman. All right, next up, Executive Director of Hunter Sharing the Harvest, Randy Ferguson.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here again for the second of these town halls that we've had this year. I'm really honored to be here among this group of folks that have been working really hard to solve some serious issues for farmers. Just to give you a little bit of background on Hunter Sharing the Harvest, for those of you that aren't aware, we're Pennsylvania's venison donation program. Another thing that a lot of people maybe don't realize is that we're a standalone 501c3 charitable organization. We work so closely with a lot of the folks you see here at this table that sometimes the understanding is that maybe we're an arm of Department of Ag or the Game Commission or something like that. We're not. We're a standalone organization. So to execute our model, which is basically to provide an avenue for hunters to donate deer at no cost to them. So to be able to accomplish that model as a nonprofit, we have to raise funds to be able to support the growth in that type of program. And I'm happy to announce that from year to year, we always seem to be here or around this time of year announcing a new record, and you're going to hear it here first. The 2025-26 or 2024-25 hunting season saw a total of 283,786 pounds of venison donated from a total of 7,794 deer in the state of Pennsylvania. And one of the things that I know Governor Shapiro talks about a lot is wanting Pennsylvania to be first. And I keep trying to reassure him every chance I get to see him that his state is first in the nation when it comes to wild game donation. There's no state in the country that comes close to the kind of numbers we do here in Pennsylvania. And that's something that Pennsylvania hunters should be proud of. And in growing numbers, it's something that the ag community can start to rely on too as we continue to improve relationships between the hunting community and the agricultural industry. We're seeing a lot of that type of growth coming through our program. So I started in this role about 4.5 years ago, and we've always done our best to keep track of data to the extent possible. So when a hunter's filling out a donor receipt at the processor, we want to find out a little bit about, was that deer an antlered deer? Was it an antlerless deer? Was it harvested during rifle season or archery or one of the special seasons? And in recent years, we've tried to capture things a little more granular, like was this an ag tag deer? Was it a DMAP deer? Was it a depredation permit? So we can start to see that data better. And when I started 4 years ago, crop damage deer were numbering in maybe 100 to 200 deer a year that we could identify as being related in some way to crop damage. And in this past season, I don't have the exact numbers, but it was just shy of 2,000 deer. So you can see the kind of growth we're seeing in that area alone, and that's a good thing, because what we're doing is that means hunters are finding out about these programs, farmers and hunters are starting to have a dialogue, they're starting to work on a relationship and start to address what we hear is the number one issue that the ag community will identify as affecting their bottom line. In one way or another, it's crop damage, typically from deer, that's taking away from their yields and taking away from their profits each year. So we want to continue to be able to be here, and we've been with hunters in all aspects over the years, and including things like the Ag Tag program and DMAP, and so we're committed to that. That's why we accept deer from August 1st through April 15th each year, so that we can accommodate each of those seasons where hunters are out there on ag lands harvesting deer and helping solve a problem. But I'm just happy to be here, happy to once again announce some great numbers, and I'm excited about the fact that we're all continuing this discussion, and especially that HSH is getting an opportunity to really reach out to the ag community and sort of let you know what we're about and what we're doing here, because traditionally we haven't so much had that conversation as we've been having in the last few years. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Randy. All right, next up is the Deputy Executive Director, Dave Gustafson, who I believe has some PowerPoint slides for us.
I do. Thanks, Andy. And what a great day it is to be here representing the Game Commission on behalf of Director Steve Smith at Ag Progress Days to talk about all the progress that we have made, indeed, right? You've heard these gentlemen already talk about progress. Well, I'll get a little more specific here in a few minutes, but I'd really like to kind of take a step back in time to a little over a year ago when leadership at the Game Commission changed. We had an opportunity to kind of renew and rebuild some relationships with the folks here at this table and in other partners. What we saw was a hunger for our partners to get us to really understand and see what they were dealing with. So I'm proud to say that our staff, all the way up to our executive director, even our commissioners, we have one of them in the room, Commissioner Bob Schwalm from up in the northeast part of the state. Thanks for being here, Bob. You know, commissioners, executive director, deputy directors, were out and about at Farm Bureau meetings, at wildlife meetings. We were traveling across the state, listening to the concerns and the heartfelt plea for help that people were dealing with out there. And it really hit home really hard at the end of the summer, and we said, you know, we've got to figure out how to expand existing programs, maybe create some new programs that you're going to hear about here in a little bit, and just overall, how to better work together, as you've all talked about, to handle this balance of wildlife and agriculture. And the Game Commission has always been focused on hunters first. And that's our mission, to manage wildlife through the use of hunting and trapping. And what an awesome opportunity to use the greatest hunting tradition state in the country to help achieve those goals of managing wildlife in balance with everybody else's concerns across the agricultural community. So just super excited. You know, that first town hall we did in January, we started talking about these things. In February, we had another conversation, and it continued. And we were all saying the same things to the right people. And I think maybe this is the first time in a long time that that's happened. We all had the same message to the legislators to get them to get us some help. So without any more discussion of opening comments, I'll jump into a few things specifically that have happened here just in the past year. And really, in earnest, in the last 8 months, like you said, Chris. And I think it's important to understand just what is the Game Commission's mission. And again, we are charged with managing over 480 different species of birds and mammals in the state of Pennsylvania. Not just the ones we shoot, but all the other ones too. So it's a big responsibility, but one of our biggest areas of focus is using hunters and trappers to manage wildlife populations. And in fact, by law, that is our responsibility. And it's not just about us, it's about the future generations too. It's about the future generation of hunters and sportsmen that so many of our commissioners and staff believe so much in, but it's about the future generations of farmers and how they're going to be able to manage their land and their farms and hand them down in a good condition to the next generation. So when we look at some of the huge accomplishments that we've had just in this past year, and I can't read that one, so I probably got to turn this way, the prohibition on Sunday hunting. And I think maybe some folks don't even understand really how impactful that might be. But what this does is it allows our board of commissioners to now set seasons and bag limits for wildlife without regard to a limitation of an arbitrary day of the week. We can allow people to get out and enjoy hunting when they have the opportunity to do so. But it also held steadfast to a few things that Chris mentioned. You know, making sure we strengthen trespass penalties, because we want people to have the confidence in who's coming on their properties and when they're allowed to be there and when they're not allowed to be there. So it did that. It increased trespassing fines. It requires written permission to be on private lands on Sundays. One other thing it did also was it codified in the law that the use of deer urine is a permissible thing that won't then be regulated by the Game Commission. There was also another law that got passed just before Sunday hunting even. It was Senate Bill 518, I believe, introduced by Senator Rothman, that became Act 26 of 2025. And that was really to help provide more crop damage solutions. One of the things we heard about a lot was, hey, it's hard to get in touch with the Game Commission if I have to take deer for crop damage. I don't want the deer to spoil. How can I deal with them? How do I make sure I report them so that you get all the information you need in the Game Commission? So it's going to engage that agricultural interest on the board of our commissioners. It codifies in law that one of our commissioners must be well-versed and involved in the practice of agriculture. And we have a proud farmer, Alan DeMarco, from up in Lycoming County, on our board right now. It also expands the crop damage reporting and delivery. It's creating an opportunity for farmers to call or use an online method to be able to report a crop kill, and then to be able to take it to hopefully an HSH cooperating processor, right? So that deer can be used and put into the food stream. We don't quite have that online reporting system exactly refined and perfected just yet, but we're making great progress really fast. So a couple other things, and I really want to make sure we talk about these different programs for what they really are and draw a very clear difference between a couple things here. The Ag Tag program, what many people that have been around a while known as the old Red Tag program, that's a hunting program. That is where farmers can enlist the help of licensed hunters to come out and take additional deer off their farms. We streamlined that. We added a tremendous number of days. It used to be that Ag Tag program only allowed for a small window in the late summer and then a window in the spring. We opened that up and said, you know what? We have these problems on these places. We need to get these deer issues dealt with. Ag Tag's now going to run from August 1st through April 15th continuously. It's going to overlap with hunting seasons. So if you got tags to use on a farm, a hunter can come out there and use those tags on your farm even during hunting season and take those additional deer off the landscape. So we felt like that was, a common sense, smart move to open that up. But additionally, that might not be enough, and we recognize that. And we've had some long-standing programs where farmers can shoot deer for crop damage if they can demonstrate losses. Well, we've also heard from our farmers that that's a really tough thing to be out there working the fields all day, then have to get up in the middle of the night and go out and shoot a bunch of deer and then have to take care of them. So we have the agricultural depredation permit, where a farmer can apply for a permit and get others to act in his capacity, essentially, under the crop damage laws to be able to take additional wildlife for crop damage. We've streamlined those permitting processes both for Ag Tag now and for the crop damage program. We've removed requirements for producing a deed. You simply have to, by your signature, when you apply, you're certifying that you have the authority to do so. So we're trying to make it easier while still not lose the integrity of the program. We still want Ag Tag to be first in line. We want our hunters to be the first thing that farmers think of when they need help. Let me enlist hunters. And on that, the next phase is a new program that we've stood up, and I don't know if any of you know how state government works, but not much happens in 6 months. So from our last time we got together as a group in January, this genesis of this idea of a certified hunter program came about, and proud to say, with Tyler's leadership helping run the program, we had certified hunters on August 1st out there on farms helping farmers deal with crop damage issues. So I'm going to let Tyler run with this and talk about a new program that we're piloting this year that was just stood up.
Tyler Strohacker, the floor is obviously yours.
Excellent. Thanks, Andy. Thanks, Dave. Hey, happy to be here at Ag Progress Days. It's a great day and honored to be up here, part of this panel. I'm going to jump into the Certified Hunter Program, but before I do that, I think it's important, just listening to the four gentlemen speak, I just constantly hear partnership and communication, and this program wouldn't exist without that. There's been a lot of thought and just groundwork laid through really the conduit of our agencies working together, which is able to get this program up and running. And it really can be a beautiful thing when everybody works together for a common goal and a solution. And I think that's what we're working for here for the Certified Hunter Program. So we, as Dave mentioned, we kicked this pilot program off. We're able to start it on August 1st. And really what it is, at its core, it's a program designed to connect hunters with landowners that are experiencing agricultural deer damage issues at its core. Our Ag Tag program is great. It solves a lot of needs, but there's also some gaps that we identified that we thought, hey, how can we better facilitate that partnership between hunters that are not only willing to hunt a farm, but maybe harvest multiple antlerless deer and continue to hunt a farm year-round, to landowners that truly have an extreme need, not just a need for a couple hunters per year, but maybe a crisis-level amount of deer damage happening to their crops. And we noticed we didn't have a great medium to facilitate that partnership between the hunters and the farmers. So through that, we started talking with the Farm Bureau and our agricultural producers and say, what would you want a program to look like? And what would you need to allow hunters back on your land? And then we spoke to hunters, particularly hunters that were involved in our ag tag program and hunters that like to harvest multiple deer. And we said, hey, what could be enhanced with our current programming? How could we get you a field more to harvest more deer? And through that, we identified a few barriers, but permission being one is how do we get these hunters permission through a program to access this land? And then there were some barriers on the Game Commission side, right? How do we get the right tags to a hunter where finding the tags and getting the permission and the coupons from Ag Tag isn't a major barrier before they can get a field? So fortunately, we've had some great framework laid out for a new hunter access program at the Game Commission that we were able to tap into and utilize some technology where we have an entire program where hunters can go on and see these certified lands that the agricultural producers have already went over their parcel information for. They can access it, reserve it. The farmer knows who's on their land. The hunter knows where they're to be, and the regulations laid forth by the landowner. So kind of the requirements and expectations. So when we spoke with hunters and we said, hey, what would you need to be a field more, and what are the common barriers? And those hunters said, well, we need a better mapping tool, something that we can see in real time and where to hunt and understand how to connect with those landowners on a whim. And then the landowners said, hey, we don't want just maybe Johnny Public out on our land with no vetting source. So how could we create a vetting process to where the landowner feels comfortable, to give that responsibility to a hunter to show up at 5 a.m. and pull in and park by their barn and go out and hunt on their land. So we sat down with landowners, and any landowner that's in this program, we visited their farm and we've looked over, hey, what does your parcel data show? Where's your deer problems? Where do you want these folks to park? Are there species of game harvest outside of antlerless deer that you want these hunters to engage in hunting practices on? Is there any time of year that you want or don't want hunters specifically? A common concern I hear is, hey, I really need hunters on my property, but I have some family that comes in and hunts for the rut. Can we pause that during that time and still open it up for the other 7 months in the season? And through some technology, we've been able to do that. So our landowners still retain full control over their land. They can set rules, they can set regulations, even time periods that they want to hunt. And for the hunters, it's great because after their certification process, they're able to access all of these lands. We remove some barriers from a tagging perspective and how they access, so they're getting an 8.5-month season to hunt some of the most game-rich properties our state has to offer. So it's really been a win-win in that regard. Our hunters on the front end, from their vetting procedure, they have to meet 3 prerequisites. It's a background check, a game law check, and we actually check how long they've been hunting. For the last 5 years, they have to have a hunting license. We send them a 100-question exam. That exam is about 50% regulation and then 50% landowner relations. We try to talk with farmers, hey, what are the common complaints or things that, that hunters have done on your property maybe, or accidents that have happened that we could mitigate on the front end? And that's what those other 50 questions are really baked into. Some of these hunters haven't had the opportunity to maybe be on a farm or hunt a farm prior to this. They might be hunting game lands their whole life. So what are some things that we can kind of upskill them on before they get on your farm? So a passing score for that's an 85%, and then they actually have to come out to a shooting range and demonstrate that they can shoot both safely and effectively. So we have a rifle component, an archery component, and a shotgun component that they can become certified, and then and only in that point would they be able to access your land that's enrolled in the Certified Hunter Program. So just want to throw the timeline up there. As we mentioned, we this was an idea that we really began to run with in March. So I'm proud of where we're at to this point. We've had hunters out and be very successful this past weekend. I'm getting calls from farmers and hunters literally every day telling me about the hunters are very excited that their freezer's full here in August, and the farmers are very happy to hear shooting and harvesting taking place on their land here so early. So the early returns are great. We're piloting here in the Southwest region exclusively for 2025. We're already getting some good ideas and good feedback on how we can take this to a larger portion of the state and how we can really expand it, but early returns on the pilot program have been really beneficial for us. So we are very excited, to say the least. Just some expected outcomes. We're hoping to continue to foster a stronger relationship between, the Pennsylvania hunter and the agricultural producers across our state. And, one of the indirect consequences of this is, I'm getting calls from farmers saying, I haven't had a backstrap in a long time, and a hunter offered me one and cooked it up, and it was really good. Or, I'm having hunters say, hey, I offered to paint, this lady's fence. She said she could use some extra help, or whatever the case may be. But it's just great to see a sense of community around sportsmen and women and our agricultural producers across the state. And I was even taken aback at how quickly that's happening. So to continue to foster those relationships and hopefully make a significant impact for our agricultural producers with the deer damage problems that they're facing in conjunction with the other programs that we have here at the agency, I think gives us a lot of runway into the future, and we're looking forward to it.
Okay, thank you. All right, so this is the time in our program where we're going to ask you for questions for our esteemed panel, and we would like the questions, of course, to be in conjunction with this particular topic. And so I concede some questions. They might be challenging questions. And so do we have anybody in the audience like to ask a question? I'm not surprised.
Wow, thanks, Andy. I don't know what that's supposed to mean. Thank you. This presentation was really, really informative. I have one question right now. There might be more as I'm going over everything in my head. But you said farm signups is open now. Is there a parcel requirement for that, or is there any requirements on the farmer's part that they have to have something on their farm specifically?
Not hard and fast right now.
Okay.
We've really started from a marketing perspective with our farms that are enrolled in the Farm Bureau or have been in our ag tag program in the past.
Gotcha.
So we're using the agricultural tag program as kind of a standards to get into the program here for the pilot. But if you're an agricultural producer, you're typically going to meet those standards.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
Yep.
I do want to call out the 4-H Leadership Council. So I think it's like 80% of them are shooting sports people, which when I learned that earlier this year, I was very excited by that. Okay, any other questions from the audience?
Andy, I'd like to just add to that a little bit, right? Because I think you have to kind of understand, I was a little nervous about how our farmers were going to handle this, right? It was kind of like, farmers don't like access, like giving access up a lot of times. But I was able to go with Tyler to one of our Farm Bureau members. And it was really interesting because the farmed land was his son. He had, his dad came out and sat in the chair. Then mom came out and sat in the chair. And then came this discussion about, so where do we want them to hunt? Where do we want them to park? It became like a family conversation. And then they're like, well, our family comes and hunts on these days. Well, you need to block that out. So, Tyler's over there taking notes and moving things around. And it's really cool on how you, as the farmer, have total control. Total control of when you want someone there and when you don't. And it's one of those systems that as they refine it, it just gets better and better. And I see our farmers seeing how it's working and are excited because it really is a tool they needed for a very, very long time. And so I just commend Tyler for his work on that. I don't think anybody could just go out and do that, but he does a really amazing job of connecting with our farmers.
Thanks, Chris.
Okay. We have fantastic. It makes my job very easy. Oh, you do?
Okay. Bill DeVore, Washington County, and I'll speak on behalf of the new program. I am enrolled in Tyler's project, and I can speak on behalf of that. And I wasn't hesitant at all to become involved in it, and it is working exactly. I thought there would be glitches. So far, there has been none. I have had people hunting the farm. I get an email from the Game Commission that I have someone that's going to be coming to the farm. I've had all the participants text me and tell me they're coming, one at 6 o'clock in the morning. That's okay. That's fine. And of those hunters, I've met 2 of them, become good friends with them, and everything has worked out perfect. And now those hunters not only have permission through the Certified Hunters Program to hunt my farm, they have permission to hunt my farm anytime because they are upstanding hunters that I can tell. They park where they are supposed to, and I've given them additional permission. So far, the program has worked out fantastic. So far.
Thanks, Bill. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
You can pay him later. Okay, we got a comment in the back here. All right, great.
My name's Steve Marsh. I'm also from Washington County. I'm a little bit on the other side of the fence on this program, meaning I'm hopefully one of the future participants in this program. Me and Tyler have been exchanging emails. For the leadership in this room, looking from being a hunter, I just moved into Washington County. I had no idea where to go. This is a great program. We need to keep this going for the sports side of it, for the hunters. I spoke with a couple members of the Game Commission down here at our booth at Kubota about this. So appreciate the communication, Tyler. You've been great here. Looking forward to the program. But one suggestion I have from this side of the fence, not being from the ag side, is a little bit from the marketing end. When I was looking into this program, I understand it just getting started. But if you can just get some generalisms out there to the public, how many farms are enrolled, not necessarily addresses, property lines, that kind of stuff, it might generate some more interest in the area. I'm in touch with that community very heavily in that area. The more I ask, the more faces I get, what the heck are you talking about? I understand it's just starting, but it's just one of those things because some of the hesitation is, I got to do this exam, I got to go do this shooting, but am I going to invest my time and never going to get a chance to maybe go to this gentleman's farm? It is a little bit of a risk, just something that you might want to think about overcoming.
Yeah, appreciate it.
I think I'm going to challenge the panelists on this question. So obviously we're having this forum today as a means of publicity for everything we've done. What more do we need to do to connect with the agricultural community and with the hunting and outdoor community? What are your ideas on that?
I'll jump in with one right away. You know, HSH has done such a great job with what they do, but as these programs grow, as we see those numbers go from a couple hundred to a couple thousand, maybe to even more than that, from crop kills that we want to see go into the food stream, as we see hunters being willing to kill more and more deer to help do their part for managing not only the wildlife resource, but the agricultural resource, we need to strengthen HSH's ability, and there's a piece in there, the processors, right? And we've started having these conversations already about how can we help a small business like a processor that, you know, maybe does agricultural processing, beef and pork and things like that, but maybe doesn't. And maybe they'd be willing to jump in and open up their doors on August 1st, but they're not going to have enough deer to keep them rolling until deer season. So, you know, what can we do in that space? I think that's where our focus is starting to turn now. You know, Tyler's program's running, we're learning, we're hoping to, I think we're on a great glide path for that to grow and expand in the future. Now it's like, where's the gaps? And I think from our perspective, I think that's a gap that we want to continue to talk about. How can we help that?
I would just add a couple of things. One is, I mean, there's been so much conversation over an extended period of time about hunting, right? And I think the sooner you can have some early sort of signs of success on the metrics, right? More deer, more hunters, more pounds, more something. To give really confidence to all of this work, you know, that's going into this was real, right? And it's actually showing a result, whether it's in a region or a county or whatever the demographics are. So I think that's really important. I mean, this went to the very, very highest levels of trying to get attention about this for a very long time. Everybody seemed to have their own sort of, you know, motivation around it, but I think it's the coalescing of a number of objectives that came together that's really important. And telling that story in whole, I think, is also important, right? and that coalition, keeping that coalition together. Final would be, and I appreciate the shout out on the hunter share and the harvest, just because one of the things that we've bumped into is where do you get these deer processed? And if you're off season, right, that's a really, really important. We have a lot of folks who want to participate, but they're only going to do it in the normal season. Normal being defined as normal hunting season. If now we opened it up, you've got to find some place to get these deer processed. So we put a lot of effort in that as part of a farm bill and a small meat processing, but there's still gaps, as noted. So I think that's a on the list. And again, I would argue this coalition was pretty effective. We had results. Let's put the effort into how do we fix some of the issue of meat processing generally, but also the deer processing for HSH. So,
Randy, I think that's a call for you to talk.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, no, we have been very excited about these changes and the growth in this opportunity to work together with these different groups that traditionally we hadn't. But yeah, we're still in somewhat of an early stage of where all of this develops. And again, it's come at a pretty rapid pace and it's been moving in the right direction. But as Andy and some others have referred to, we've still got some hoops to work through. There's some logistic issues and so forth. When we look at some of the areas that have some of the worst problem with crop damage in the state, some of those areas also are ones that would fall into what we would call, or what the Game Commission identifies as a DMA, or a disease management area for CWD, where it's been detected and they're trying to control that. So one of the things that our organization takes a little step further than what would be required for the general public to consume deer. You're allowed to consume a deer that you harvested within a DMA. You're not absolutely required to have it tested, and even if it tests positive, correct me if I'm wrong, but that you're not prohibited from eating that meat as an individual harvesting that meat for yourself. For our program, because of the fact that we sort of look at ourselves as serving a little bit higher demand, because of the fact that we're providing a food source to the charitable food industry. So in other words, this is a group of people who are receiving this protein, and they're not sort of making a consumer decision like you and I would make standing at a grocery store deciding whether we want to buy something or not. So we hold ourselves to a higher standard. So with things like CWD, we require deer that are harvested within a DMA to be quarantined and then tested for CWD. And when a negative test result comes back, that's when it can be released into the food system. So this is another area that we still need to work toward, and it folds into a lot of different things like CWD testing and turnaround times and different options for testing that may be in the pipeline down the road and so forth, and access to the information. There's a communication vehicle that has to happen there too between the hunter and the processor to report those test results and things. So there are things like that we really haven't had an opportunity to really dig into yet. But for our program, those are the type of things that we look at as some more things we need to look at as a group and address and find some solutions to.
I think to answer the question about how do we get the word out, if you haven't walked up and down the street here, you notice farmers really like to talk. There's a lot of talking going on. From the Farm Bureau side, we've been in a holding pattern because we want to make sure that before we go out and really publicize it, and we've done some things together that are really, really cool, and I can't wait to talk about it, right? But it's about getting the bugs worked out, right? Getting things to a place where we don't end up with a farmer who's upset, right? That's not a good way to start. So as soon as we feel comfortable that we're all in agreement that we're ready to roll, we're going to unleash our farmers. We'll have Will, our communication director, he'll start out, and we're going to get the word out. You're going to need to hire about 6 or 7 more Tylers because you're going to need them, because our farmers who know about this are really, really excited about the opportunity to be able to help mitigate that problem. So I think give us a little time. We don't want to be too quick on the trigger, but so far it sounds like we're doing exactly what we set out to do, was to try to make a difference.
Yeah, I'll just chime in here. I had an opportunity to meet with some outdoor organizations, hunting organizations in Western Pennsylvania, just outside of Tyler's target area, and they were like, we're hearing this is going on. We really want to participate in this. How can Tyler grow this area where it's being implemented to start? So there's a lot of interest in this. Any other questions from the audience?
First of all, I appreciate the presentation. It's very informational, and appreciate all of your guys' time here coming and you know, sharing the information. My question was, it seems like this program is being really successful so far in the very short amount of time that it's been, you know, involved in being implemented. So what's your timeline of seeing that evolve and possibly, you know, moving just from the Southwest region to kind of move that area to, you know, having it available for the farmers and hunters to have all across the state? What's your timeline for that, and when do you kind of envision that seeing? It's kind of a hard question, but when do you kind of envision seeing that, you know, when's that might happen?
Yeah, that's a great question. For right now, it is a pilot program here for 2025. So we anticipate having some great data as we close out the year 2025, and then as we look into 2026 is when I would anticipate seeing more expansion and marketing push behind this. The early returns have been very positive, and appreciate all the kind words. We just want to make sure we again, don't rush into it, and we lay the groundwork for this to be a long-term successful solution. So I would say early 2026 is when I would anticipate pushing more out. Yep.
Okay. Any other questions from the audience? Oh, fantastic.
This could be a new 4-H program. Going out harvesting a deer.
Being that this is just a pilot program yet, has there been any exploration into like sort of capping the amount of hunter participants in the CHP program, or like so you don't have certain properties booked out like years in advance like some vacation places, or is that just a non-issue at this point in the project yet?
You must be a hunter. It's a great question. Again, there were so many individuals that went into the building of this program to make it a success, and one of those teams is our IT team and our current hunter access team. And they had a foundation built for us to tap into that was really instrumental. So we have a reservation system where hunters can basically reserve a farm up to 14 days in advance, and we cap the number of hunters per day to a safe, an effective number of hunters. So for right now, the number of hunters really hasn't been an issue. We haven't been fully booking out these farms. Could I envision down the road where we have to find that right balance of number of hunters to proper acreage? I do. And that's kind of the beauty of the pilot. After 6 months, we'll see, did we have enough hunters? Do we need more hunters in this area? Less, whatever the case may be. How did our reservation system function? But we're really trying to strike the balance of enough pressure and harvest on these farms, but also keep the success rate for our hunters high when they reserve that farm.
Okay, any other questions? You guys are trained really well.
We have questions for everyone. Do not worry. I know chronic wasting disease had been mentioned. Can people, I don't know if this has come up, but if there is chronic wasting disease detected on someone's property, would they be able to participate in this program, or would they be asked to do something else until it is no longer an issue?
Yeah, we're not excluding right now if a property is in a DMA. I will say we don't have any farms currently enrolled. Somerset County is technically part of the pilot, so we have some farms that are right on the fringe. I'll also say that we have something in the works where we can increase our testing with our certified hunters on these farms, even if they're not necessarily in a DMA, that we're working through right now. So there's some maybe more to come there, and how we can expand our current CWD capabilities and insight. Yep.
Okay. Any other questions? Well, this is the dangerous part. All right, so we have this beautiful backdrop, which I'm seeing for the first time, that has cervids on a deer. But there are other animals that eat farmers' crops. And actually, I get a lot of calls about bears. I would say bears are probably the number 2 larger animal that I get calls about. So and I've had bear sausage, so it could go into the charitable food system.
Not through our program.
Not through your program. No. But where are we on handling other animals that impact farmers? Any thoughts on that?
I can talk a little bit specifically about the bear issue. It was, I don't know several years ago, we track the number of nuisance bear complaints. We track the numbers of complaints of crop damage issues from bears. And when we look at our different wildlife management units, we saw an uptick in certain places. 3A, for instance, which is Route 6 and north to New York state line. It's a long, kind of skinny east-west running WMU. That's my home turf up there. That's where I grew up. I'm very familiar with it. And there's a lot of bears roaming around up there. And we had a time period where the conflict was just unsustainable. So our great bear biologist said, you know what, we can add some additional seasons to allow for some more opportunities to harvest bears. We did that for several years. We added a muzzleloader season, we added an archery season, we added expanded, extended rifle seasons where you could shoot bears during deer season. But we did that by select WMUs where we knew we had issues and problems. So by doing that, we were able to reduce those numbers of complaints significantly in a fairly short number of years, to the point now where we've scaled back some of those seasons because we just don't have the number of complaints again. So I think with bears in particular, that's one where we have such good information on our population. We can track it and see WMU by WMU, where do we need to ratchet up the harvest, or like in 2G in the big Northwoods, you know, maybe we can scale back and not have so much opportunity to harvest bears there because we just don't have the conflict. So for something like bears, it's I would say fairly easy for us to identify the problem, implement a strategy, and within a couple seasons rein that back in. When it comes to things like raccoons and other critters, it gets a little more complex and a little more difficult, though.
Okay, all right. I have a follow-up question about other smaller animals. Secretary Reddy, you want to comment on this? Anybody else? All right, so here's the follow-up question. Actually, for a number of years, I followed Secretary Redding around on his urban ag tour. And our urban ag tour people on that tour, those farmers, they have a lot of trouble with animals too. Now, they're generally smaller animals, ones that run along at the ground level, groundhogs and things like that. So what are our control mechanisms that we have available in agriculture and through the Game Commission here in Pennsylvania for urban farmers, for those smaller varmints?
Yeah, that's one area that I'm personally not super well versed on. I know we have cooperating nuisance wildlife control people in a lot of parts of the state where they can come out and help with those issues. They're permitted by the Game Commission, and we work in partnership with them. There's permissions within the law to allow folks to remove damage-causing wildlife, whether it's a groundhog or a raccoon or whatever the case may be. So I would say that if there's a question about that, ring up our 800 number, get to our dispatch, and they'll point you in the right direction to our regional office where that local warden or that local regional law enforcement team will be able to tell you specifically with exactly what issue you have, what you have available to help solve it. Hopefully that's helpful. But we have two 800 numbers to call the Game Commission to get you to our central dispatch now. That those dispatchers are highly trained to direct those calls to the right places. So,
what about our largest game, elk? I happen to be a registered elk guide, and I work for an elk outfitter, and I work with a lot of landowners up around our elk zones. And I can sympathize with a lot of the farmers up around there with a lot of the damage. Of course, I've never been one to ever draw an elk license or a tag. And with that said, I see a lot of farmers with a lot of damage. The bulls with these wrapped bales, all they need to do is spear them a couple times. We know what the damage does to that. There goes the whole principle of having a wrap bale. I've also seen the few people that still pick ear corn, and there's still a few up there who do that, and they still put it out. And those bulls rake the side of the cribs, and then the rest of the cows come in, and I've seen it actually have farmers circle the cribs with their wagons just to keep the elk from raking the crib to get the shelled corn out. I'm not saying it's a severe problem, but it is a problem for the farmers up in that area. And I know Jeremy personally real well, and we've talked about that. But I don't know if that's a can of worms that the Game Commission can afford to dig into, because where do you start and where do you finish on something like that? So I don't know what the solution is, and I don't know if Jeremy doesn't have a great answer. He tries to regulate that with the appropriation of tags in these certain bad areas. So
Yeah, I think, again, that's one where it's a targeted issue. We need a targeted solution, right? And that's one where we would certainly encourage people dealing with that damage to call directly into us, get our folks out there and find what works, whether it's, somehow removing something that's attracting the elk to the area, or kind of like bears with garbage, right? But with elk, probably not feasible when you got big cornfields and rat bales and things like that. So I think each one of those situations is going to be unique enough that it's going to take a specific solution. We actually have our Deputy Executive Director of Field Operations, who's our former North Central Region Director, and we have our North Central Region Director here in the room today as well. So the fact that you brought that question up and we're getting it out in the open gives us something to work towards and pay attention to and try to work to better solutions. So I appreciate the question and the comment, and I appreciate the recognition that it's not an easy something to fix, right? Thank you.
Secretary Redding, have a comment?
Yeah, I didn't sense it at the time, but I'm curious that all of the deer behind us are doe. Right, are there restrictions in terms of the certified program to doe, or is that a farmer or landowner restriction?
Yeah, it's a good question. So the Certified Hunter program is primarily targeting antlerless deer through that.
Antlerless deer,
Now, that being said, when we sit down with the landowner, if they are willing to allow the hunting of buck on their property, which I would say about 80% of the properties enrolled are doing that. So they would have to utilize their antler buck tag, but yes, they could harvest a buck and just use their antler tag on that property. Yep.
But just to be clear, if it's happening during the ag tag season, it's antlerless only.
Yes.
In the ag tag season.
Correct.
Okay, so we have 5 minutes left, and so I'd like to invite our panelists to each give us just a closing comment, and we'll start, of course, with Secretary Redding.
Well, I think first of all, a note of thanks. I mean, I think this conversation and just general engagement and sincere sort of interest in solving the problem has been noticed and valued very much. Seasons are important to agriculture. Seasons are important to hunting. I think the seasons sort of converge here with what you talked about today. So I think the just willingness to say, we worked hard to get here. We got a lot of folks who are now supportive of, more people, I think, supportive of hunting, because they saw the intersect between agriculture and crop damage and hunting. And so I think that's great. The next sort of frontier for us, I think, is just sort of inspiring another generation to hunt. Ultimately, this is somebody who you give them more days, you give them more stock, you give them more land, you get more people, right? So hopefully that's part of the answer, right?
That's what we're hoping.
after. So anyhow, note of thanks to all for
President
bringing us to this
Hoffman?
moment. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Andy, and it has actually been really an amazing last 8 months as we've made this journey together as a coalition. And I can see big things as we move forward, because I know that as we continue to be successful, knowing our farmers, being on their farms, and seeing the amount of damage that is occurring, I can tell you that on my farm, we don't have what I see in other parts of the state in damage. And so not all places will need to have these types of programs, but when there is counties and areas that need it, we need to have the tools to handle it. And so I just know that if we continue to work together, we'll continue to solve the problems, put more money back in our farmers' pockets, because when they plant that crop, they have an investment. And that investment needs to come back in some type of economic return if we want our farmers to be successful. So my last comment would be is, since the 4-H have a shooting program, we should just enroll them right into the Master Hunter program, and we're going to get new hunters into our program, so the next generation is sitting right here.
Sounds like a plan.
That's a great comment. Randy?
Yeah, I just want to echo what everybody has said so far. I mean, we're very excited about this partnership, and we kind of, at Hunter Sharing the Harvest, we kind of see ourselves as sort of a bridge or a conduit that kind of helps this whole function happen. We're helping to facilitate the process, and what I have to keep going back to is just this fact that when we look at people for the opportunity to engage with this type of program and with our program in specific, what I like to keep driving home is this notion of hunting as social service. You don't hear that very often when it comes to talk about the hunting community. That's another opportunity where this whole thing becomes kind of a bridge, because now we're talking about hunters not only helping solve a problem for hunters, but also help manage the statewide deer herd, which is the Game Commission's priority, but then to also be performing a social service that's just something that's not typically associated with the hunting community, but it's so immense you can't even imagine. We look at the 284,000 pounds that were donated just last year in Pennsylvania alone, and over these last few years I've become friends with a lot of people and in a lot of other states that have similar programs. There's about 38 states in the country now that have some form of wild game donation program, and they're all facing similar issues. Everybody's facing crop damage issues. It doesn't matter whether you're in the South or the Midwest or the East or the West Coast. It's an issue. And the numbers are staggering. We're talking about millions and millions of pounds of not only venison, but other forms of wild game across the country that are feeding people in local communities. And that's the hunting community doing that. And that's typically also in some form of conjunction with their ag community and improving relations, because it's such an important topic. So to me, we're very, very excited to be here, but it's one of those times in an organization's history and a state's history where we're forging a lot of new ground at a very rapid pace. So it's exciting. It can be a little scary exciting sometimes is the way I describe it. But it's all moving in the right direction, and we're just glad to be a part of it and looking forward to continued discussions.
And Dave?
And I get to go last. I don't know if it's a good thing, but one of the themes that I keep hearing about is values. You know, we have hunters that value wildlife, and they certainly value how they're going to use the tags they get to put in their pocket. We've got farmers that value their crops. We've got folks in need that value where their next meal's coming from. And I think pulling this all together, once we started really valuing each other and valuing and understanding the needs of all the other people that were parts of what we're doing today, I think it lifts everything up. I mean, you look at the value of a farmer engaging with a hunter. If that hunter understands what that farmer needs and they can value each other's own needs separate from their own, everything works then. So I'm really proud, you know, of where we've all come from and where we're at today, and I'm really excited about where we're going to be in a couple years from now.
Tyler, you want to have one last word here? Sign more people up?
Yeah, go to Game Commission website, certified hunter. No, I just close with, you know, similar to Dave, I'm hearing just so much community, and that's one of the blessings I've had is being able to be out on these farms and talk with these hunters, and you know, a community of hunters that's now engaging with agriculture producers that they may have not understood fully, you know, those two groups. And then we have the ability to donate to our community through HSH. And then we look up here with this coalition of different agencies all working together. It fosters a great community, and proud to be part of it.
Well, that's tremendous. I really want to thank the panelists. Let's all give them a round of applause. And thank you for being here this afternoon.
Thank you.
Thanks, Andy.
That's good.